not copyright. So for example, some people nowadays may write a book about Islamic knowledge and then say there's a copyright on that book and this knowledge cannot be disseminated and so on and so forth. So if you look at the Islamic position of scholars of the past, they didn't do such a thing. We freely read and use the books of the scholars that lived hundreds and hundreds of years ago, and they didn't insist, I must make money, otherwise this knowledge cannot be shared. Because the knowledge is the knowledge of Allah, it's the knowledge of Allah's religion. You should not seek religious knowledge and teach religious knowledge to make money. That's not allowed. It's an act of worship. You should do it for the sake of Allah. But some people may say, hey, for the publisher to be involved, for the printing and the typesetting and the design and this one and that one, we have to pay these workers, we have costs to cover, therefore we must sell it. The goal is to disseminate the knowledge, not to make money, but it's done in this professional way. The professional way costs money, right? So it's good for us to buy books and to support Islamic businesses and not necessarily to just get those free PDFs online and so on, right? Because those Muslim authors, some of them dedicate themselves to writing books. That's their source of income, actually. They require that to survive, even though they're still writing that as an act of worship, doing it for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When it comes to other types of research, then again, also there's some difference of opinion when it comes to certain types of technology, so on and so forth. You can see the world in general is moving more and more towards the open source concept. So even software and other things, they're saying it will be better when you share it. It will be better when more people collaborate and more people contribute, right? And we as human beings should have a sense of, I want to help others, I want to make the world better, and it should not only be about greed, 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 right? So when you see things like the pharmaceutical industry, right? They may have a patent on that medicine for the first 10 years, for example, in the United States. Therefore, they can charge extremely high prices to the point that the one who needs the medicine cannot afford it. They come out with a cancer drug or something for some of these very chronic or fatal illnesses, and then the one who really needs it says, I can't afford it because it costs thousands and thousands of dollars. Those companies will say, we need that money to cover all the research costs and so on and so forth. But this is where, for example, government and others who are interested in the public well-being and welfare should be stepping in. Problem is when government is extremely affected by lobbies, there's a conflict of interest, because now companies and others legally come in and bribe the government to do things that are in their favor and not in the favor of the citizens and their constituency. So this is problematic in Islam, right? So patents and copyrights, it's a case-by-case basis. In some cases, it might not be so Islamic or acceptable. In other cases, it may be fine for the person to protect, something that they have designed, so on and so forth. Yeah, you're welcome. Well, that goes back to the answer to our first question. So is that a good that can be copyrighted Islamically or not, or trademarked? Therefore, when you buy the fake one, are you cheating the original producer of that good or not, right? So that would be the answer. If we said yes, it is forbidden for somebody to copy that good in the first place, then it would be forbidden to buy it as well. Allah knows best. Any other questions or comments? Okay. One last type of transaction they talk about here is gambling. What is gambling? Gambling is the act of risking money upon the outcome of a contest of chance. In this way, a person risks money upon an agreement that he or someone else will receive something of value in the event of a certain outcome. Put simply, gambling involves betting that must result either in a gain or a loss, and the gambler profits solely at another person's loss. So the problem with gambling, it's not a mutually beneficial contract. One party loses, right? So if you gamble at a casino, for example, it's either you or the casino win in that transaction. You don't both win, right? You don't both win. You are not getting any goods or services for the money that you put in. The only thing you get in is maybe some addictive release of endorphins in your brain that says, oh, the rush felt good to risk. Maybe I would win, maybe I wouldn't, right? And if you win, you will win much more than what you put in. You put in 100 ringgit, but you had a chance to win 1,000 or 10,000 ringgit, for example. So it's not a fair transaction in Islam. So this kind of thing is forbidden, and the negative effects of it are quite obvious. I remember I went to Genting once with the family to see the amusement park and the things there, and there's a casino there as well. So somebody was on the bus next to me, and he looked very depressed, and he said to me, you come here often? I said, oh, first time. He said, oh, I'm here every day. And he looked very defeated. I said, every day, why? He's like, basically, he's addicted to the gambling. He cannot stop, he cannot give it up, right? Even though maybe he's running out of money, maybe he's mortgaged the house, maybe he's lost his family, lost his job, so on and so forth, but the addiction is so destructive. You walk by the entrance of the casino, there's a big sign here. Do you have a gambling addiction? Call this number, we want to help you. What? You want to help them as you are serving the poison? It's like the drug dealer saying, are you addicted to drugs? Come, we will give you some drug and alcoholism counseling. Give me a break. Give me a break. It doesn't make sense, right? If you know your product is so destructive, stop selling it. Why you are selling it if you know you are ruining people's lives and families and so on. The Islamic ruling on gambling. Gambling is strictly forbidden as supported by textual evidence from the Quran and the Prophet's sayings, including the following. Allah considers the sin of engaging in gambling to be far greater than the profit gained from it. As the Quran states, they will ask you about alcoholic drinks and gambling. Say there is great wrong in both of them and also certain benefits for mankind, but the wrong in them is greater than the benefit. So nobody can deny that there isn't some benefit in alcohol and gambling. You can make money. There is some form of enjoyment and so on and so forth. But the harm far outweighs the benefit. The benefit, for example, as they said, the casino never loses, right? It's not designed for them to lose. They make billions. So the people who own the casino, invested in the casino, are going to make money. Maybe only Trump is the only loser who could fail in a casino. All other casinos are making money. So the reality is somebody is benefiting, but at the expense of who? Thousands or millions of others whose lives are destroyed or money is lost for nothing. For nothing. Number two, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala considers it to be a type of filth and abomination due to its detrimental effects on the individual and society, and commands the faithful to avoid it as it sows enmity and hatred amongst them and turns them away from the remembrance of Allah and from the prayer. When you think about gambling, casinos, what do you automatically think about? Do you think about upright, upstanding citizens of society who form this industry? Or do you think about mafia, and you think about underworld, and you think about criminals, and you think about all these seedy elements of society, right? Las Vegas was founded by the mafia, by criminals. They came and set up this kind of business. So automatically gambling sows enmity. How many a person is killed as a result of a gambling match? Even sometimes it's mahjong or something that they're playing at a family event, but people are a bit drunk and a bit upset about who lost money or think somebody cheated, and somebody suddenly is stabbed or killed, and what is this? So Allah says alcohol and gambling are something which can sow a lot of animosity between people. And you can see that gangs in the world that are killing each other and fighting and causing a lot of violence in society, it's over control of things like drugs and alcohol, intoxicants, gambling, prostitution, all these kind of illegal things that they want to control and are considered very addictive and make them a lot of money. So it says here, and turns them away from the remembrance of Allah and prayer. Allah says in the Quran, O you who believe, intoxicants, gambling, stone altars, meaning the worshipping of idols and so on, and divining arrows, this was a kind of lucky charms for the Arabs of the past, are abominations devised by Satan. Avoid them so that you may be successful. Satan only seeks to sow enmity and hatred among you by means of wine and gambling, and to keep you from the remembrance of God and from your prayers. Will you not then abstain? So this was a verse that was revealed telling the Muslims that these things are now forbidden. When this revelation came down, Muslims were still allowed to drink alcohol, for example. Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, when he sent someone into the streets to call out and read this verse and tell them that now alcohol basically is completely forbidden, the companion said, if only you could see the streets of Medina at that time, the gutters were running, flowing red with wine, because people were all dumping their alcohol out. So how come it only took one verse to just be read out? It was because people's hearts and minds were already attached to Allah, to the hereafter. They believed in the messenger. When commandments came down, they didn't find it difficult to implement them, even though some of them may have been addicted to alcohol or gambling, as can happen, right? So the Prophet, peace be upon him, rid the society of those things and considered these practices something which bring more harm than benefit. What are the detrimental effects of gambling on the individual and society? Gambling has numerous adverse effects. It mentions here, it precipitates enmity and hatred among gamblers, for when friends gamble and one of them wins and takes their money, they will undoubtedly feel some jealousy or hatred towards him and hold grudges against him and even plot against him and may harm him. This is a known fact that is based upon observation. The Quran states in this context, Satan only seeks to sow enmity and hatred among you by means of wine and gambling. Besides this, it distracts from the obligatory prayers and the remembrance of Allah. Someone who is drinking all the time and intoxicated is not someone who's in a state that they're going to remember Allah. Some people who gamble, it's really mind-boggling. The techniques they use in America, for example. My grandmother lived in a kind of condominium for the elderly. They would send free shuttles and buses. So they pick up the elderly and they take them to the casino for free. Transportation is provided by the casino. Then they sit them there in the casino and they will give them a buffet lunch extremely cheap. So they will say, hey, I'm going to get food, a nice meal, right? And they'll bring, at some casinos now in Las Vegas and so on, they'll bring the best chefs of the whole world. They have all kinds of luxurious restaurants and so on. So the food attracts and they will sell it at a lower price. Then there are ladies who will come around and bring you free drinks, bring you beverages, bring you whatever you need. Just stay in your seat, don't get up. Because as long as you're at your seat, you're putting money in the slot machine or you're paying at the card table or the roulette table or whatever it is, so the money continues to flow in. So for them, whatever they lost on transportation, food, and beverages, they will make it up many-fold in the money that you dump in. And these are elderly people who are living on what? Living on pension. They don't have even income. The money that they're earning, their pension is from their job that was 20 or 30 years ago, is barely enough to pay for their medication and their expenses of today, falling into debt and destroying their lives and so on, right? But they say, oh, these elderly are bored, family and friends don't visit them, they have nobody in their life, they live alone, so on and so forth. So for them, it's an outing, it's get out and do something, and they're taking us there for free and the food is cheap, let's go. But then they will end up, if they can't control themselves, dumping more and more money, and it takes them completely away from anything else in life, because the person can sit on that machine for hours and hours, not even remembering that they need to use the toilet or that they need to go and do their prayer or any other normal function of life. Secondly, it destroys wealth and causes gamblers to suffer heavy financial losses and personal or legal problems. As we said, people lose their homes, their families are destroyed. Number three, the thrill of gambling and the possibility of winning becomes addictive. If the gambler wins, he becomes greedier and gets carried away, hopeful to acquire more illegal gotten gains. Everyone who is putting money in that machine says, what if the next one is the one that I'll win? And I've already put in so much, I don't want to walk away. Because if I walk away, someone else sits down, puts it, that might be the one that wins. So there's this sense of just keep putting money in, maybe you're going to win soon. What are the types of gambling here that they mention that were used past and present? Playing a game in which players stipulate the winner will take some money. For instance, a group of people have a game of cards, each one of them setting aside a certain amount of money, and the winner takes all of it. This is forbidden in a form of gambling. Number two, betting. This is the act of risking money on the unknown result of an event. For instance, each gambler places a bet on a certain team in a football match or a horse race or whatever it is. Number three, the lottery, which is a type of gambling that has the element of chance. In a lottery, lots, usually in the form of tickets, are purchased, and a lot is randomly selected to win a prize, usually a large sum of money. For instance, you put in £1, you may win 1,000 or 1,000,000. We can see some of the lottery pots in the West can be very large. That's forbidden as well. It's a form of gambling. Number four, all types of gambling without exception, casino or non-casino gambling games, such as electronic and online gambling that involve money that gamblers can either win or lose, it falls under that category and it's forbidden. Okay? And we'll close with this topic. They mention here just a couple of characteristics that are examples of business ethics that Islam has stressed. So a Muslim, when they're doing business, needs to have certain characteristics or qualities to be a good Muslim businessman or woman. Islam instructs its followers to observe certain ethics when they engage in financial transactions, including the following. Number one, honesty. Islam requires its adherents to be honest in their dealings with Muslims and non-Muslims alike. So the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, interestingly said that the one who is very clear in their description of what is being sold, for example, or bought, Allah will then put blessing in the outcome of that financial transaction. So the believer believes you don't lose by being honest. Because some people are afraid, hey, if I'm honest, people won't want to buy this used product, for example. If I tell them the defects or how long it might last, or if I give them some of the truth behind the scenes, they're not going to be interested. And actually, modern management studies and business studies show it's quite the opposite. People are loyal to companies that they believe are honest. People want to be able to trust manufacturers and companies. So companies are more and more working on their corporate social responsibility to show that we do care, we are trustworthy. Because in the past, 70s, 80s, 90s, it was common that companies were lying and tricking and harming. Their products were toxic. They would, destroy the environment. They would do this and that. They would cause cancer. And even if they knew, they didn't care. They would do studies to try to prove that smoking cigarettes is not bad for you, or drinking alcohol is not bad for you, or whatever it is, right? Even though they knew they were selling a product which was poison. So more and more companies are moving away from that, and they know that consumers are not that stupid, and they have access to a lot of information, and it pays in the long run to be honest. So Islam believes that 100% as well. When you are honest, Allah will bless your transaction, and it's a religious commandment to be honest. It's a great sin to lie. The Prophet ﷺ said lying is a characteristic of hypocrites and a sign of hypocrisy. May Allah protect us from that. Number two, truthfulness and transparency are among the virtues that Islam has stressed. The Prophet ﷺ said, the seller and the buyer have the right to keep or return goods as long as they have not parted, and if both parties speak the truth and describe the defects and qualities of the goods, their transaction will be blessed. However, if they tell lies or hide something, their transaction will be deprived of all blessings, as we just mentioned. Proficiency. A Muslim, no matter what his occupation may be, must carry out his duties with efficiency and to the best of his ability, making efficiency his guiding principle in all his endeavors. The Prophet ﷺ said, Allah has prescribed excellence in everything that you do. And he even gave an example. He said, if one of you is going to slaughter an animal, you're a butcher, then you must slaughter it in the best way possible. Sharpen your knife and do it properly, and so on and so forth. So everything that a person does in life, there's a right way and a wrong way to do it. There's a good way and a better way to do it. The Muslim is someone who automatically strives to do it the best way, even if no one's watching, even if no one's gonna know. Why? Because you believe Allah is watching, you believe in the Day of Judgment, you believe in the fact that you will be accountable. So many times in manufacturing, what happens is people will try to cheat if they feel they can pull one over on the consumer or the one who's buying. So someone told me the other day they're buying furniture, so the company said, hey, we'll go ahead and take some millimeters off of every dimension of the furniture, saving on wood. The person who's buying is buying a certain weight, certain dimensions. You are automatically cheating them. They said, oh, they're buying containers full. They're not going to know. Who's going to come and measure one by one? Well, Allah knows, right? The one who was doing that was not a Muslim, but the Muslim is somebody who knows automatically that such a thing is a sin and is going to ruin the blessings in their business because they're cheating and deceiving others. So proficiency is important when we take on a responsibility. When we take on a job, you have to do it well, do it passionately, do it correctly. If you don't want to, then leave that job. How many person you find them in their job, especially many government officials and employees, and you come to them and as if they're resentful about their job, as if they're resentful that they have to do this transaction for you. Leave your job, find some other way to earn money. Why are you sitting there as if you're some kind of slave and someone has forced you to be there and you hate your job and you let everybody know it? This is unacceptable in Islam. Okay, so that's a little bit about what may make a transaction in Islam forbidden. As we said, the general state of affairs in Islam is that all financial transactions are permissible. until and unless they fall under one of these categories. So if the transaction is done in a way which is impermissible, such as injustice, uncertainty, gambling, that would make the transaction impermissible. Or if the good or service you are selling is in and of itself impermissible, such as selling alcohol, intoxicants, pornography, any of these kind of forbidden materials, for example, would make the transaction impermissible. Other than that, all transactions are permissible, and Islam has given loose guidelines which allow us then to do, for example, e-commerce and all other forms of business without any problem. Any questions, any comments, any corrections, any concerns? Yes, sister. Sure. Okay. Oh, good question. Okay. I'm not sure. I'll ask for you and find out. The sister is asking if you're doing betting but there's no money involved, it's more like someone will have to do some work or chore or something like that if they lose. Okay? Right. So the sister is saying another example, you have an employee that you don't like so much or is not performing well. Another manager wants to take them. Do you have an obligation to tell them about that employee and so on? Or would that be something wrong actually because you're backbiting and so on? So in Islam, backbiting is forbidden. You're not allowed to say bad things about somebody to somebody else, um, even if what you are saying is true. The only time backbiting is allowed is, or one of the cases where it's allowed, is when you need to warn somebody about a person. So for example, if someone comes and asks you about a certain individual and they want to get married to that person, and you know character flaws about that person that may impact the marriage and that the person should know, then you're obligated to share that information actually, right? Or someone is coming to do a financial transaction and asks you because you did business with that person before and says, should I do business with this person or not? And you know they're not trustworthy, they don't deliver on time or whatever it is, then you have an obligation to give that information. Why? Because that's sincere advice, and Muslims have to give sincere advice to one another. So it doesn't mean though that you have to come and say everything about the person. So if someone comes and asks you about somebody that they want to do business with, you don't have to come and tell every little bad thing you know about them that's completely unrelated and won't necessarily have an impact on the area that you're going to interact with that person. So you're supposed to limit what you say, because in general everyone has flaws, and the more we share flaws, the more animosity we create, or the more boundaries we create, and the more tension or hatred may exist in society. So in general, you are supposed to cover up the flaws and faults of others. So if this manager is asking about that person and what you are going to share, they need to know it because it's going to impact productivity or performance, then yes, you should share it. No, I mean, you have an obligation to share that information, in my opinion, if it's something that's going to impact, meaning this person's going to join their team and then harm their team's performance overall or something like that, they have a right to know. But if it's not related to the same area they're working in, it's not really going to impact them, then you don't necessarily have to share it. And if they're not somebody who should be in your team or their team, then maybe they're not somebody who should be in the company in the first place. So as a manager, you have an obligation also to the company, because some people will say, oh, I want to protect this person, I want to be, nice to them, I want to whatever. But you have a duty to the company that pays you also, Islamically. As a manager, your job is to make sure you're hiring the right people, you're retaining the right people, you're making them perform in the best way possible. Now, sometimes bad performers can be changed. Meaning, if you use the right managerial techniques, you can motivate them, you can train them, you can improve them. So firing them is not always the answer, but sometimes it is, if they're very dishonest, if they're harming the company, and so on and so forth. So you have an obligation. You cannot say, oh, because I'm a good person, I'm going to protect them somehow because they have a family and an income, and no. Your job actually in duty is to the employee and the company. So now you're cheating the company when you keep an employee that's dishonest or harming the company in some way, right? So sometimes we have a tendency to feel like we want to protect our friends or whatever it is, and this is not fulfilling the amana. We're not fulfilling the trust that we've been given as a manager, because you're a delegate or representative of the owners of the company to make sure that the company's run in the best way possible. So you have to think, if I was the owner, would I be happy with this decision or not, right? Now, what some owners don't appreciate is being good to employees is good for the business. Some owners don't seem to understand that. They think if you squeeze the employees, if you pay them less, if you treat them poorly, somehow everything is going to be better for the company, and that doesn't work. So this is also important as a manager, that we make sure the employees are not mistreated. Okay, any other questions or comments? Yes, sister. So a lucky draw in Islam is not allowed if you had to put money into it. So if you had to buy a ticket, a raffle ticket or whatever it is, and then they're going to draw out and you may win a prize or not, you having given money makes it an impermissible transaction. Yeah. My understanding Islamically is it would be impermissible. Impermissible, not permissible. Yeah. Yeah, because what they're trying to do by putting that is make you buy more of the product even though you don't need them, just so you can win. Because it's a cheap product, for example, and you want to win a car, you want to win a trip to Australia, you want to win whatever, I don't know. You have to what? Okay. Yeah. No, again, the lucky draw, did they have to put money in or not? So if they didn't put money in, then there's no financial transaction here. You're giving a gift away for whatever reason, just because you like to give money away. But if you made them put money in to try to win money, that's not allowed. That's my understanding of it. Allah knows best. No, I mean, from the Islamic point of view, it doesn't matter about the value of what you may win. The problem is that there's a chance you may or may not win. Oh, I mean, if a person is buying a car and their intention is not the trip, that's a different story. But the reason they're giving the trip is to motivate you to buy their car, right? They're not giving the trip because they love you. They're giving the trip because they want your money. So this is the problem. So it's a manipulative marketing technique that plays on people's love for risk and prizes and gambling. That's why they're trying to attract people in, right? So the problem is they're saying, buy our car instead of their car. Buy the same car from us, not from that dealership, because we give you this. So you then make your decision to go there because of that. That's a problem. Now the issue is, let's say I need to buy this item, and this item they're giving a prize, but I'm not interested in the prize, I just need the item. So I go and I buy the item. Is there a sin on me? I don't think so Islamically, because I need that item, I want to buy that item. Now what if I win that? Am I allowed to benefit from that or not? I don't know. This is another question. We'd have to get a fatwa from somebody more knowledgeable than me. You know what I mean? So even some of the games that kids play, they say, put a coin in, and then you can use the arm to try to grab a toy. But most likely you cannot get a toy. Right? And if you get a toy, the toy is worth much more than your 50 cents or 25 cents or whatever. It's worth 5 ringgit or something, right? So even this is forbidden in Islam. This is some form of gambling, actually, right? Or there's games that are in kids' arcades. I've seen adults sitting there with baskets of coins, and they're putting money in. I said, what are they doing? Because they can win a lot of coins back. With the coins, they can get prizes and tickets and this and that. It's a form of gambling, actually, even though the person may say, oh, it's trivial because it's just toys or kids and so on. No, but the premise is wrong. The premise is wrong. We're teaching our children to do gambling and get used to gambling from a young age. So many Muslims participate in that stuff. I don't think they have a proper understanding of the concept, unfortunately. They said, I'm not in a casino, I'm at a mall, I'm in an arcade or whatever, right? But it's, if you look at the nature of the transaction, it's gambling. Doesn't matter how much money it is, it's still gambling. So whatever is forbidden, even if it's a lot or a little, it doesn't matter. So even drinking a little bit of alcohol is still forbidden. Alcohol is forbidden. Gambling, even if it's a little bit of gambling, is still forbidden, because gambling is forbidden. But can you do competitions between people and so on, like horse racing or whatever? Of course, no problem. There's no problem in that. Right? The issue is people betting on those races and on those competitions and so on. Okay? Maybe if there's very, very more detailed questions, or people work in these kind of industries where they have to do this, let me know, then I can get some answers for you from experts who know more, inshallah. Because a lot of now financial transactions and products are very convoluted. They put a million terms and conditions in there, so even on the surface, you cannot always just judge it. You have to really understand what's going on behind the scenes to determine properly whether it's allowed or not allowed. Because some of these things are also done by Islamic banks and Islamic institutions, so somehow they've come out with it's lawful. How did they come out with that? I'm not sure. We'd have to understand. Maybe they look at it that we're giving this away, it's not that the person put money in or something. I don't know. But on the surface, to me, it seems wrong. Allah knows best. Okay, any other questions or comments? We end there, inshallah. Jazakumullahu khairan. Subhanakallahumma wa bihamdik. Ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk. Walhamdulillah wa salatu wa salam ala rasulillah. Prayer time just came in. For those that want to join, we'll pray in the next like 5-10 minutes, inshallah. Okay, thank you so much. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.